Okay, this is the open space meeting of February, what's the date? Where am I? The 8th. And this meeting is recorded by video and audio in accordance with the state open meeting law pursuant to chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022. This meeting will be conducted by remote participation. Additionally, all votes taken by the Open Space and Recreation Committee during this and future remote meetings will be by roll call vote. And I will turn it over to Chairperson Wakeman to introduce the members.
Thank you, Greg Catamatori. My name is Heidi Wakeman, and I'm the chairperson of the committee. And with us tonight in attendance are the following members: Mark Poulin, Dan Morris, Richard Quaitman, Liam Anastasia Murphy, and also welcome members of the public. Oh, is that Dave Sargent? Oh, I see some of our other members that I will be inviting in to become panelists. So let me see. One moment here. Oh, thank you. And thank you, Greg.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if, is that Dave Sargent? The D, do you think? If so, Dave, raise your hand.
Dave? Noel is here.
Yep.
Yes, we've got you, Noel. I was
Good,
just
good.
trying to see if there was anybody else in the attendees that was perhaps a member.
There's a Dave, but.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, well, if it's Dave Sargent, well, Dave Sargent, is that you? Oh, yay. Terrific. We're all here. So
Yeah.
furthering introductions, also present, member Liam Anastasia Murphy, member Noel Mann, and member Dave Sargent. So thank you to members of the public also here tonight. And I guess I'll just say thank you for agreeing to meet virtually. And we did not meet in January, but I hope that all is well in your respective areas. And yeah, I will just start by saying that I had a great meeting yesterday with Mayor Verga and with Greg Catamatori, which I'm looking forward to talking about with the next steps. And also that our next meeting may be virtual and it may be in person, but the agenda will reflect that and invitation. So other than that, I would say I'm really looking forward to hearing from you and from having a rich discussion about what our next steps are and hearing about what you're excited about from our plan and where that will take us. So that's all I have at this point. And I guess I would just say, invite Mark Poulin, if you're ready to go with Community Preservation Committee updates, that would be great.
Do we want to approve the minutes from last meeting first?
Yes, I do want to.
Everybody,
Yeah.
I sent them out last week.
Yep. And I know that don't think Richard was at the meeting. So do I have a motion to approve the minutes of our December meeting?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Okay.
Okay, member Morris, all in favor? Aye.
All right.
Opposed? And abstaining? Okay, and I guess I would also just say, can I have a volunteer taking minutes for tonight? Or how do we, because we're back to virtual. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it. Terrific. Thank you, Mark, for that. I had the minutes review after the update for CPC. So would you like to tell us about what's going on in community preservation?
Yes, so I'll start by saying that we finalized we've been working on all of, I think I reported last time that the projects all went to city council and were approved. And this time, in our last meeting, in between the next session that starts up when the 2023 applications, as we revised our CPC plan that hadn't been updated in a long time. It was, I think, maybe 8 or 10 years old. So it needed a lot of refreshing, and all the different areas refreshed it. It's posted actually on the city website right now under the CPC. If you want to share screens, I can show you the few pages of the part there. I can kind of just buzz through it if you want. It won't take long.
That would be great. I would love to see that.
Yeah, it won't take long.
No, that's great.
And members of the public listening, they can look at it at the like I said, on the CPC website. So you have to share.
Oh, I have to, or can I?
You have to give.
Oh, I'm
yeah.
going to make you a co-host.
Right. I think that's how it works.
Yep. This is so good. We're learning as we're going.
Anyone who's a panelist should be able to share screen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do I
At
just?
At
Oh,
the
there
bottom,
it is.
the share
I see it.
screen.
Oh, you
Yep.
mean the big giant green button that says share
That's the
screen?
one.
That's it.
Okay. All right. Are you seeing my screen?
We are.
Oh, there you are. Okay. And I just need to be able to page down. I can't, how do I move? Let me just move that out of the way. Okay. So yeah, the full plan is here. I'm just going to scroll down through it quickly. But it basically the fund, the allowable uses, and it goes through the different sections. Open space and outdoor recreation is a category in CPC, for those that are familiar, as is historic preservation and community housing. So there's 4 categories, but it really is interesting how open space and its outdoor recreation is categorized in the CPC. It is kind of interesting. I've been learning. This is my first full year, just exiting my first full year on it, so I learned a lot. But it goes into a lot of the stuff. Some of the stuff was boilerplate, but we brought in some new information as of late of 22. So we were able to bring in a bunch of information onto this that was outdated in terms of how many projects were staffed, were supported, and dollar figures that we've received, and the real estate taxes, and go on and update the full table. Again, we don't know what the real estate surcharge is going to be, but for last year, for example, we had over $1 million to award out for grants, and not all of the $1 million was spent. There's always some kind of reserve. We try to have a reserve for off-cycle requests that come up. So again, more in this is kind of like from the coalition website kind of stuff. But let me jump down into the open.
Mark,
Sorry.
is it just me, or are others having trouble hearing Mark?
He's fading in and out.
Okay, I will. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Oh, I
that's
can,
better.
yes.
Okay, I'll just talk loud. Let me see if I can find my volume. Yeah, I got my volume up. I'll try to speak loud. Okay, so for outdoor space and recreation, here's where I'll slow down a little bit. Okay, so this was completely rewritten, and with all new information based on the open space plan. And we have a link, so we have a hyperlink right to the full plan on the city's website. And then what I asked for and was right on section 9, we got a second hyperlink put in, because rather than try to navigate through, hundreds of pages, this takes you right to the goals and objectives of the open space plan, and the 7-year plan. action plan. So that's what's there. And this was right out of the open space plan. It was just a good summary. It just gives people kind of an idea of where survey respondents and the open, and the committee, our committee, recommended areas for, improvement and prioritizing of certain areas. Now, what was interesting is that this word prioritize here it was our language for our open space plan. So it was some questions putting this in the CPC plan. Does that mean this is a CPC priority, right? In terms of that, and that was a little bit like sort of something we drew out of that and said, well, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a CPC priority, just because of that language. We couldn't really go and fix every single one of these kind of things like that. So just something to note there. And then here is we have the 5 primary goals of the open space plan that are in here. And additional stuff about protection in this area for permanent protection. And I think that language came out of the plan. And then some of this was carryover from the other plan. This stuff is just sort of boilerplate stuff that comes out of this coalition website. And then did some more things for outdoor recreation. Again, based out of the plan. Right, and that's really it. And it just gets into it. I'm not going to read all that. It gets into priority, gets into the housing. And I'm kind of jumping through it, but it gets in.
Your audio is really broken up.
All right, I'm sorry, but it gets. I guess what I'm finishing up, and just saying that it goes into the housing and the historic really at the end. So,
Mark, it was very interesting reading, actually. Thank you.
so yeah, please do go read it on your own. Scroll through it on your own. It's on the CPC website, and it should be something that's easily updated. It has to be. It's supposed to be updated every year. It's not like the open space plan that is 7 years. So it does get updated every. It's supposed to get updated every year. It was neglected for several years. So it should be easy to kind of just tweak it every year a little bit, based on the dollar figures and things like that in there. So that's all.
Mark, thank you so much. And
You're
what
welcome.
what I appreciate about your sharing that with us is seeing how, while the language was brought into question, or was like, how is that used? I do think it's a really powerful visual to have the map. And I think it's a really powerful connection to these 2 documents, to see that they're cohesive, that one can support the other, and that members of these committees are aware, not just aware, but working to further the goals of the other, so that they're not in silos. And so I just appreciate that. And thank you for presenting.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah. How long is your term on as the member or the representative? Do you know? Is
I
it-
think it's a 3-year term.
I
And
think
I'm on I just started year 2.
great.
And it's a 3-year term. And I think you're allowed up to 2 3-year terms. They just can't be consecutive or something. I forget how that works.
Yeah.
For someone who's leaving was just on their 2nd term or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a lot of work, but it's I think it's fun seeing, especially with the outdoor, recreation ones. I think it's fun to see these projects come to life in real time, like the Young Legends. Some of them aren't as exciting. It's not very exciting to see drainage put in a ball field because it's underneath the ground. So not all projects are what we call sign worthy, but some are. And like the Young Legends hockey rink, I think is a good one. So, and the Lucy Davis, the pathway that connects, all along the boulevard and connects back up. I think that's a good one too.
Great. Does anybody else have any questions or clarifications for Mark? Any feedback? Great. All right, thanks. Well, I think that finishing that up, I think we're going to move right into the new business. And I neglected to start with saying that Liam got a shout out in the Gloucester Times. Did you see that?
Mhm.
And I thought that was really great, just acknowledging the presence of a younger person getting involved in city politics / service / civics. And I just appreciated that and wanted to publicly acknowledge that. If you did not, it was about where are the youth? And so Liam was recognized. And so hopefully we're going to give you some things to do. Things that you're excited about doing. So at this point, I want to say I'm looking forward to a continued discussion. We had a small meeting in December, but it was rich with ideas and also some homework that one of our members, Dan, had completed. And there have been other conversations about what to do next. And so my invitation to you is based on sections 8 and 9 of the plan, which we actually just saw. And that I find that map also is another way to understand it. But what are the spaces or places or priorities that you want to get behind? And actually, you know what, I'm backtracking, and I wish I'd put up this that Richard, you were not at that meeting, but as a co-member of the Dogtown Advisory Committee, is that something that you want to report out on, or would you like to just bring that within this discussion more organically?
I can report. We
Okay.
met last month. I think I was desperately ill with COVID the last time we had a meeting. So I'm glad you're able to be here.
Yeah.
Our last meeting was held in person at City Hall, and we focused on our principal priority, which is going to be ceasing operations of the compost facility, helping the city find alternative locations as a transfer station or something of that sort, and ultimately ecological restoration of the compost facility area. That's it in a nutshell.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you for my being around the map or all over the agenda. So if we've learned anything in these past few years, that sometimes we pivot. And so great. Well, I know that Noel reached out to me about something that she's interested in. I have something, and I also would just love to hear from people who I have not heard from because of not being at a meeting or just because this is a new opportunity. So everybody gets a turn. And if you have things you would like to share, you can share the screen, or you can just open it up to a discussion. And I also invite people to listen and ask questions when we need it. And if you can connect what you're saying to one of the objectives, I do have, I have it pulled up on my computer. So if you reference it, or you're like, I think it's, section 2 or, objective 3, or you need some clarification, I can access that for you pretty quickly. So I'm happy to do that. But I think I'd like to open it up to anybody who would like to start with, what would they like to put there, or what do you think we should as a committee, based on timeline and prioritization, interest, and then we can talk or listen. So
I'd like to, I have 2 proposals that I'm not sure that the committee is going to have any responsibility as far as they're concerned, but one of them is quite simple, at least on paper, and that's an improvement to the Corliss Landing, which is just at the bottom of Apple Street. it's high enough that a rising tide of the parking is high enough, but the ramp itself is so steep that a combination car and boat don't work anymore. It needs to be graded. And the other one, which one of my main concerns in the Dogtown area is the loss of biodiversity. And it's already in conservation, about 6 acres of Young's Farm, which has gone to the dogs and would make a wonderful project to turn into a more environmentally friendly area. So there could be a trail around the outside, and planting with wildflowers and native vegetation, some few trees. At the moment is so overgrown that it's barely accessible. The project would require crossing a wetland for definitely require machine operation. I've spoken with Greenbelt. Unfortunately, my arrangement to meet with Val Gilman didn't work out. So I haven't, I've described it for her briefly, but I think it would be something that I'd like to see very much done. That's all.
So did you see this identified in one of our categories that you can remember? Or is it just more like, oh, this needs attention? Or what do you, can you?
Well, I don't think we specified biodiversity, but health and restoration of the environment is certainly a priority. And that's what this is aimed at. It's taking a waste area and turning it both into a land with some recreational value. It's a great place to walk a dog, for example. It's enclosed. It is surrounded on 2 sides by conserved land, the Plum Cove Recreation Area, and a little piece of, I guess it's mostly Plum Cove, but it does have a connection to Dogtown. And to provide some open space. I mean, there used to be a lot of birds there and there aren't anymore. So, it's a restoration project.
Well, that's great. And I'm glad that you brought up, just that you are talking with, you mentioned city councilor and Val, and also Greenbelt. And one of
the property is owned by Greenbelt.
Right. So one of my initiatives, or one of my plans for the year, is to invite formally a member or 2 of Greenbelt and the trustees to come to our meeting and say, show them this list and then say, hey, come talk to us, or how can we work together to help fulfill these goals. So
Well,
if this is targeted, this is like one that's a little different than, say, a parcel or like a land acquisition, but how can we make it better? And, as you said, how can we?
Well, I think the responsibility for the rehab would certainly fall to Greenbelt. And they would be the chief fundraisers and beneficiaries, I suppose, as well as involved in the management. I've spoken with the management department, both the Daves, about the project, but it hasn't gone very far because there just hasn't been an opportunity to get there and do the reconnaissance, as it were.
I think another piece that I'm encouraging folks to do individually as representatives of this committee is to suggest community meetings with city councilors and or neighborhood members who are impacted at a place like Corliss Landing, because my understanding that's in the Riverview neighborhood. Correct?
It is.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there are a lot of people who have a vested interest in that. And so to ask your city councilor or neighborhood folks to say, hey, join us, we want to talk about this, because as this committee knows, one person can't make, it's hard for one person to have as much impact as a critical mass. And how do we do that? We include and invite people who have a stake in what's happening and what we want to be improved. So
Yes, I'll speak to Dina Enos about it.
who's that?
Well, she lives very close and has used the landing in the past. In fact, it was she who told me that it didn't work very well for boat and trailer as far as getting up and down is concerned.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Great. Well, and also, as we know,
She lives in Riverview.
yeah, also, I was going to say, also, as we know, the sometimes appointments don't happen and we'd have to try again and reschedule. So great. So well, I look forward to hearing more about what's next. Do you feel comfortable working on that, Noel?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
great. It sounds like it. I just want to be sure. So
Mhm.
so I just have to say, Dave Marrow is here, and he is who I thought Dave Sargent was. So forgive the, I don't know where Dave Sargent is. I'm not sure if he slipped out to another meeting. But if anybody hears him needing to get back in, please let me know. Or so anybody else want to jump in?
I will say, but Dave Sargent did have an interest in extending the path behind the high school.
Mhm.
It's not going to be easy, and I think that can be easy if that's a flood zone. So whether it works or not, but it's something that's certainly worth doing if it's possible.
I was gonna talk to Dave about that at this meeting, actually. That was on my notes of things to talk
Uh-huh.
about. And what I was gonna ask is that project still viable, given the
Well, given the
flood-
building
given-
of the wall.
Yeah, exactly. How does that all play in? Because when I saw that happening near the Newell Stadium, I first thing I thought of was Dave's idea about
Right.
that pathway. So that was a question I had for him on that. Matter of fact, I have it right here. Yeah. Yeah, Stubby Memorial or something. Yeah. So yeah, I was going to talk to him about it, but I guess we can't. He's not here.
Well, I see Richard's hand, and I would love to
Yeah.
hear from you.
Sure. So I'm torn between a number of our priorities. I will agree with Noel that Corliss Landing is very difficult. I've used it. You have to really catch it on the right tide, and it's quite steep. And that, improving access to the waterfront is one of our priorities. So that might be something to discuss, Mark, with CPC. That might be a very good use of CPC funds. The permitting is probably going to change the slope would probably take years, however. So there's a couple of things. One is improving signage, of which there's a lack of in Dogtown. We talked in our study about talking about coming up with a design criteria. And I think we don't need to reinvent the wheel there. I think that the trustees, for example, what they use in what's it called? Why am I blanking? In Magnolia.
Ravenswood.
Not Riverwood. Ravenswood is fabulous. And every time I go in there, people comment how clear and wonderful they are, and you don't get lost. Now, admitted, there's a certain joy to getting lost in Dogtown, but it is public land, and there is some obligation, I think, or responsibility to help make it a little bit more accessible. Bicycles is another thing. I know Dan is probably going to speak on that. I don't know how we make 127 and 127A less dangerous, but they're very dangerous and getting more dangerous by the moment. So I think that's a very important priority. And the third one, as I said, I'm torn between priorities, is the land acquisition of areas in Dogtown that are either in private land, and we talked a lot about that, and we talk a lot about that in the Dogtown Commission as well, and bringing properties within Dogtown that are Chapter 97 land, but that are not under a conservation restriction. There is a growing concern that with climate change and coastal lands becoming flooding, there could be increased pressure on city-owned land to convert it to housing. And from a conservation point of view, from a carbon sequestration point of view, from a recreation point of view, keeping Dogtown sacrosanct is quite important. So that's my thoughts.
I agree.
Thank you, Richard. Liam or Dan or Mark?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Richard just said. I was I guess as something that I felt like we could get done decently quickly perhaps was doing the signage. And kind of like cleaning up the signs on the public spaces. I think a lot of the trail systems could use it. I think could be a really could be a great project. Maybe we could partner with someone local to do kind of like do I had some ideas for maybe designing the signs and then partnering with the local shop or someone to do that work. And I don't really know what that would take, but I mean, definitely a little bit of funding and some manpower, but yeah, I'd be willing to work on a project like that. I don't know if Richard, you want to work on that with me as well, if you were thinking about signage.
Yes, it's the
Yes,
only
absolutely.
signs there at the moment have been under threat. I mean, it's a problem. Katz has been working on a system and it's helpful, but it gets lost. It's a tricky one.
Yeah.
One of the
I'm still in the meeting.
one of the exciting things about where we're at right now, I'll just interject and say that we have funds. We have funds, the city, ARPA funds that are earmarked for open space and recreation. So one of the things that the mayor said to me yesterday was, how do you want to spend this money? So I was not really prepared for that, to say, well, I want this and this and this. So I'm excited to say, well, if we want signage, then, or like, these are the 3 buckets we want to put our earmarked money in, and we get to help make those decisions, guide the decision making. It's not a guarantee, but it is an opportunity that I'm excited about. And I know that if you saw Greg Cadamatore's email, he alluded to that. So I want to say it's not a small amount of money, and it also can fund things like signage, and it can fund paying a Cornerstone Creative, or like to work with community groups that are already making signs to say, hey, let's partner to fulfill these objectives as outlined in the plan. So just that's something else to consider as we are, as we're being practical, because there are some things in that list of priorities that were stated, oh, well, this is not going to happen. Like it's not going to happen. And I thought, okay, well, I'm here to listen. And also, I know there's realities of budgets, but so to hear from all of you is a starting point. And then also to strategize about how do we get the money? How do we get people behind us and the projects and make it happen so that, we are fulfilling our our potential, and then also helping make Gloucester better. So that's why, like, being specific too is something to think about. Like, so if somebody says to you, you have X amount of money to spend and you have 3 buckets to put it in, I mean, we can look at the map. We can also say, all right, well, if there's this many projects, what's the best use of our money? Do we put it all in one bucket or do we divide it? So, and I know we haven't heard from everybody, and I have some different priorities, but, oh yeah, Richard, I see your hand raised.
I just had a quick question. The ARPA money, is that for capital projects only, or could it be used, for example, to fund a Parks and Recreation department within DPW?
That is a great question. My understanding is that a Parks and Recreation department is not going to happen with all the money in the world. Or that's my understanding from the meeting that I had yesterday. So that's well and good that we put that on there as a priority, but it's not within this current administration's priority. So, but I don't know all the limitations on ARPA. That I do not believe that is an ARPA condition. And ARPA, for those listening, is American. Someone can jump in and say what it is. I don't have it in front of me right now. So it's pandemic money to help aid recovery communities.
Right, the CPC is getting some of that, it's getting some funds, other city things are getting funds, it's just being divvied up in certain areas, and then like everything else, if it doesn't get spent, things can get moved around, right?
Exactly.
Right?
It's the American Rescue Plan,
Yeah,
American Rescue Plan Act. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
See, I figured pandemic was in there, but
Yeah.
yeah, Dan.
So, first off, thank you for meeting with the mayor. Were any other staff there besides Greg?
Greg Kadamatory and Greg Verga. Just the two of
Okay.
them. Yep.
Okay. So,
Yep.
all right. So the Jill Cahill was not there.
Jill Cahill was absent. Yes.
Okay. Was there any discussion? It's one thing to talk about ARPA, to Richard's question about, is it only for capital improvement? For something like a organizational change, you'd want appropriated funds, and you'd want, something that's a continual appropriation funds for the foreseeable future. So I'm not too surprised that was, turned down, that particular recommendation. But was there any discussion of appropriations or priorities for the administration that would be worked into the city's base budget, not ARPA budget?
No, it was very much a, what do you want? It was, I mean, that sounds a little harsh, but it was it was the mayor giving me a chance and Greg filling in any gaps that I might have missed to say, we have this plan. What do we do now with it? And what can our administration do to help further it along? He did not identify things that, exactly were their interests. I mean, I'm looking at my notes here too, just to see, that we can advise, to step up and advise more than we maybe have in the past. And I brought up the fact that that's happened in the past and to very little change, meaning we've made recommendations. Yeah.
Okay. I was just going to ask what has happened in the past specifically.
Advising or making recommendations to prior administrations that, I mean, that was very clear. Mayor Verga said, well, there's things that happened in the prior administration that I can't necessarily I can't make good on promises that were made with prior administrations. I acknowledged that there was a lack of clarity about the role of the committee. Are we an advisory, or are we just making the plan? What do we do? And so that was a big part of our discussion as well. And that the coordination of different committees within the city, volunteers are that our role as volunteers is really important. But if we're doing the work of what should be city people, then that's not fair or appropriate. I tried to be clear and say that we are doing this with a goal in mind and with service and civics in mind. And also there comes a time when the city can put money behind something. So I thought it was the beginning of a conversation that will continue. I did not make a plan to go in front of the city council to present the plan. I figured this listening was important for me, and also to sort of figure out like what Mike Hale has a lot of things in his list, in his queue. And so when we come and say, well, here's our plan, and these are the priorities that we want to, we feel deserve the most attention, it's not a guarantee that it's going to happen, but it's a new opportunity to get that community meeting, talk to a city councilor and say, when you were a city councilor, like you said, Dan, you signed the complete streets plan. How are we going to incorporate that into new projects? And I know that there's a lot of work to do, and I think that my frustration with the immediate shutting down of the Parks and Recreation is the acknowledgement that DPW covers so many projects, but an unwillingness to change the structures of responsibility.
Yeah, I said I was not surprised, but I'm not pleased either. That was dismissed. So, okay, thank you.
So I'll go. So there's a lot on my plate with the CPC. And so I was thinking about something to take on, and I looked at last year and being the liaison of 4 different CPC projects is a lot of work in itself. And so for me to take on something and myself and pick something, I think is very hard for me right now. I'm still working. And again, the CPC is three times the amount of work that open space is once you start getting into those projects and become the liaison for the open space and recreation project. So that's a lot of work. I was thinking about pickleball, but it seems like it has momentum. I'm hearing rumors that it may be an application coming on CPC, although the open application season hasn't started yet, but I'm just what I'm hearing. So I think that's got some momentum behind it. But I think we all should help each other. Whatever projects we decide, it shouldn't just be one person's project on the committee, that we can get behind them all as a committee and help with bike, as help Noel, and help, make it so they're all of ours as well. And we can help in that respect. Yeah. And being careful not to just throw something out there, like say, yeah, we need signs, and then somebody goes off and makes signs. And next thing you know, you got, flashing neon signs everywhere all the time that don't look good. So they're like, right, are there standards for the signs? Can they be homemade, natural looking things, or are they bright, shiny things? Are they huge things? I mean, so we have to be careful just saying something, we want signs, and somebody off without even paying attention goes off and does it and says, yep, here's your signs you asked for. And we didn't get the chance to review them or something, or weigh in with other public input and stuff like that. So I just worry about just saying, okay, here's our list and giving it to Mike Hale or something, or giving it and say, here's our list. So we just have to kind of watch these things and work together, I think. Yeah.
Thank you, Mark. If I can respond to that, I want to say that we're all volunteers doing this, and that is important for me to acknowledge, first of all. And second of all, that the homework, I as a former CPC rep, I agree. It's more work, or it's another level of work. And yet there are also people who I think are ready to do some things instead of meeting and wordsmithing. So I want to acknowledge both, and that because somebody takes something on doesn't mean that everybody takes something on. And also, I think because there are so many priorities and goals in the plan, that to pick a few that is something that means something to you personally and or you have connections to is the advice that I was given as like, what next? How do we go forward? I respect what you said. And I think that this does not seem like a group that does anything fast and without input from other people. So, I heard you and I respect your input, and thank you for that. Noel, I see your hand is raised. Oh, here.
Sorry. I just want to say that I think it's a great mistake to rely on the DPW for conservation and restoration projects. Whether it's under the Conservation Committee or, there should be some kind of authority, semi-authority, which is concerned with the environment. I mean, apart from, we have global warming anyway, so, it's all linked.
I will just say that Gemma is no longer in the planning department because she's the sustainability director. So that's a plus, I think, having her in that position.
Yes, land use. One of the things that we are supposed to do is help the city find places for buildings to be constructed or new schools or whatever it happens to be. And I think that's kind of her job, and it's not an easy one. Certainly there's been a lot of building in Gloucester in the last years, and so much of it is involved with out of town activities. And I'm a little distressed.
Mhm. Thank you, Noel. And also I want to just invite Dan, and then I'll say my piece about what's interesting to me. So
Sure, I'll go ahead. Thank you. So at the last meeting, I gave kind of a sketch of a possible plan for generating interest in improving cycling and pedestrian safety and access, and some sort of pathway continuity. I spoke to one city councilor who advised that we bring our plan to the mayor's office. So I'm very pleased that you were able to do that. And I'm hopeful that there will be further opportunities to perhaps come to Joe Cahill or to the mayor and and kind of follow up on as we make progress on some of these, and so show that things are achievable. Towards that, I suppose, I contacted several counselors by email, asking about some specific ask about their consideration of specific road hazards for cyclists around the city. There were 3 or 4 that I listed in an email. And well, let me back up. First off, I contacted the Traffic Commission, since, we're talking about traffic issues and parking and, and road issues. And I was told by the chair of the Traffic Commission that they didn't want to hear from me, but they would only take inputs from council members, and that I should contact my council members. So I contacted my council member, Ward 5, and sent an email that said, here are some specific road hazards for cyclists in the city. And I would, seek your support in getting the Traffic Commission or some other body or DPW to work on them and fix them. And they're ones that we've discussed before, so the specifics aren't too important at this point. So furthermore, we have this Complete Streets declaration from several years ago. You happened to be on the council at the time that was voted up. How's it going, and what can we do to make this a living document? Something that's used. It calls for consultation between DPW and the departments and the members of the public anytime that there is road construction, to consider how to incorporate pedestrian and cyclist, and basically the concerns and the needs of all users, not just automobiles. So I heard back from my counselor, said thank you, and you look into it. And meanwhile, I sent a variant of that message to each of the counselors whose wards contained some of the road hazards that I was specifying. I was waiting for this meeting to contemplate my next steps, because I knew you were reaching out to the mayor's office. So I'll, informed by this meeting, I'll kind of figure out where I'm going to take this next. But no real progress, just one-way communication to several counselors.
Which I fear is typical. I fear, and I feel the tension of advocate for things and ask for things and engage. And then sometimes there's a feedback and response, and sometimes there's nothing. And so, to your point, Noel, about DPW as so who are the people in the administration, the city government, that we can, be like the gadfly that says, hey, this is really important. These are identified priorities. And I just want to acknowledge that we are, this is only one of many priorities. But when there are a group of people who, and not meaning us, but when there are a group of people, Corliss Landing neighborhood gets together and says, hey, we need this improved, it's harder to shut it down. It's not a guarantee, but it does show community engagement. And so I hear the frustration, and I also had my own meeting with a member of the public here tonight who, it was a casual meeting at the mayor's open house, but I think I'll share my 2 areas of sort of new interest. The first is Magnolia. Oh yeah, Dan.
Well, I would just say I wouldn't I don't want what I said characterized as frustration. This was a first volley. And I think, persistence is going to be important. And, none of these, what I'm talking about would be some discrete localized improvements, but more, the bigger success would be a change in how the department contemplates preparations for a road improvement. And that's an organizational change, and that sort of thing can take years. And so I really don't anticipate a big hug from any of the council members that I contacted. They're busy people and they've heard from me once. And so I need to be persistent. Perhaps, others of us can chime in as well, or I'll try to create opportunities where others of us can chime in and say, hey, this is important to us. I don't mean to push back, but I don't want to characterize this as frustration. Certainly not yet.
Well, thank you for that. I think for me, when I see things from 2015, or when I know that there are documents that I understand that organizations take time to change, and institutional thinking also takes time to change. So thank you for clarifying that. And also, I think I'm just figuring out that there's a lot of hurry up and also glacial pace at the same time. Or, hurry up and tell me what buckets to put the ARPA money in. Like, okay, well, that's exciting. And also it's, we have this one document, this plan, and then other priorities. And then what about complete streets? And to get at the thinking piece, which you said, Dan, like how we think about including and incorporating how we improve our city is, that takes new people or new ways of thinking, new ways of people's thinking.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, thank you.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, Heidi, it seems to me, there are so many important access places that are going to be inundated. I think about all the coves along the west side of Gloucester. Goose Cove, I'm right above the DPW is going to be underwater in 2050. It's if we're going to, is this something that we want to get involved with as a committee? The difficulties of getting the money appropriated for improvements to bridges, and there's so many.
Well, I guess I sometimes go back to what is the purpose of our committee? And then now that we have the plan, so if the purpose of our committee is to create a plan and use the plan to advise local government, then that's what we're doing. And it's small steps and persistence and also targeted. So, meaning just to say, let's acquire land. Well, then, okay, but how do we know which parcels and who do we work with to make that happen? Doesn't have to be us alone as a member of this committee, but also our committee alone, because there are community partners that are identified. So
places like Goose Cove Causeway or Mill River Estuary, they're engineering problems as much as anything else.
And so are you bringing those up to say that we have that's tell me more. What do you
Well, to me, that's DPW. I am simply more interested in restoration of bioecology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I know the problems. I know where the money's got to be spent.
Mm-hmm.
But it is concern to me that we don't pay more attention to. We have lost biodiversity over the last decades to an unprecedented. It's just awful. If you know anything about what's going on in the woods and our woods now belong to the coyotes, the deer, and the beaver.
Yep. Well, some of these things we are going to bring attention to, and we're going to work with existing partners and invite the potential for, acknowledging these issues and then doing what we can and then also acknowledging what we can't, so thank you for being the voice of biodiversity in our.
I have to say there are organizations, I mean, the Climate Coalition has been, it was the Climate Coalition, and speaking with some of them that suggested to me that Young's Farm was going to be, could be much improved and an asset for all these things. And I hate to see it dismissed out of hand.
Where is Young's Farm? I can't.
In Lanesville.
Okay, that's what I thought.
It borders
Noel-
it borders Plum Cove School. The
Noel,
land,
didn't
their recreation area. What?
Noel, didn't you indicate that's owned by Greenbelt?
Yes, it is.
If that's the case, that's something we can provide
We can promote.
support, but we can't.
Absolutely.
We can't suggest,
Absolutely.
but use of city funds would not be appropriate.
Not
It's
even
privately
CPA? Why isn't CPA of an interest?
Oh, maybe. Mark,
Maybe.
can you speak to that? Can it go towards privately held open space?
Well, I mean, the CPA, we respond to applications.
Yes,
We don't generate our own applications for these things. Someone would come and put an application to do something on a piece of property. It comes to us as an application and is seeking funds to do something on the property. I guess I'm not following what the ask is here.
well, it's, I don't know, it's all academic.
Well, it sounds like you're talking about protecting land that's already Greenbelt owned.
Not protecting, improving. It's a restoration problem.
Mhm. Right.
So that's for Greenbelt to come to CPC if they wish, or
I-
otherwise raise funding.
Well, so, yeah, I guess a private citizen could partner with them to request funds. I mean, it is one thing the CPA does look for is putting money into conserved land. In other words, doing projects on land that will be conserved, in perpetuity or something like that. So the risk of,
Greenbelt, yeah.
yeah, or something like that. So that always comes up. What is the level of protection on the piece of property that we're putting taxpayer dollars on to, right? And if it's protected already with a conservation restriction, that's a good thing.
Well, I'm going to invite within the next week or so, Greenbelt to come or just share the plan with them formally and say, hey, where can we partner or how can we help? How can you help fulfill our priorities and how can we work together? And
Thank you.
you're welcome. So. Well, I'll just go because I think everybody's had a turn, and I'll just say that for me, I'm excited about Magnolia Woods improvements that have been mapped out and are currently being mapped out by one of our guests, one of our public attendees tonight. Amy Blondin is a new staff person for Cape Ann Trail Stewards. And Dave Marrow did a lot of work on this through the Magnolia Woods Advisory Committee, which is no longer a committee. And this also came up at the mayor's meeting, just the prevalence of committees that could possibly be working together or why always have another committee to be doing this. So I'm interested in working with these fine people who have already done a lot of work and who have a plan, have ideas, and are hoping to improve the connector between Magnolia Woods and Rafe's Chasm, make the trails more formalized. And I also feel that Magnolia Woods, hopefully site of pickleball, and I know just improved facility and access. This has been an issue in the winter for people to access it during the winter time. And so Magnolia Woods, it's not my area. I live closer to Good Harbor Beach, but I do feel like it's been identified as one of the priorities. And then secondly is the redesign and reshaping of Green Street Playground, as well as the East Gloucester School Playground / what comes next after the demolition of the school. I also know there's a member of the public on the call who has been in contact about that, and there will be a public comment. So I just want to say, I see your hand raised, and you'll have a chance to speak to that. But these seem like they're in line with our priorities and what I printed out just to help me keep straight here is, to conduct a 10-year Parks and Recreation capital improvement plan. That's not what I mean, but to prioritize investment in parks, playgrounds, and athletic facilities. And playgrounds, East Gloucester School Field, Parsons Playground is right on there. So I also see Green Street Recreation Area. I mean, there's a lot. So these are the kind of things that they're right in here. And it says, to prioritize investment, that's money that could be towards design, equipment, things that make it better. And I am looking forward to working with city councilors and neighborhood / community groups / interested people to help fulfill those. So those are a little new for me. I'm also really interested in cycling, not because I ride my bike too much anymore, although I love it when I do, but I do feel that Gloucester needs to continue evolving and growing and welcoming multimodal transportation, cycling, and pedestrian friendly infrastructure, because it's better for people's health, it's better for the environment, and it also is good for tourist dollars when people can come here and walk in a pleasant way. I think that when we have multiple stakeholders winning, then that is a win. So that's where I'm at now. And does anybody have any further questions or anything they want to add to or share out? Okay, so I'm going to just also address that Greg has that the planning and development, the floodplain overlay district zoning. I will encourage you to reach out to him if you have further questions about that. And also on planning and development agenda is the review and approval of a new conservation restriction presented by Greenbelt. So I hope you had a chance to look at that and the draft conservation restriction at 16 North Kilby Street. So that was sent along to folks.
I didn't get that.
Okay, then I will forward that to you.
Thank you.
Yep, I'm happy to forward that to you.
At the Comcast address.
Okay, yes, at the Comcast address. And then I also want to say that if you are not reappointed to the Open Space and Recreation Committee in advance of your next scheduled meeting, you may need to head to the clerk's office to receive a temporary appointment. So if you have any questions about that, or if your term is ending and you're not continuing, I hope that you reconsider. And
I don't think my term is up for 2 years. I mean, last year I was renewed for 3.
okay, yeah, I'm done in 24, so I have one more, but there's a few of you, Dan, Mark, and Richard, who I think need to take care of that, or,
I swore in last week.
oh, terrific.
I'll
Great.
be going,
21, 22,
I'll go to
23,
town hall
24, right?
tomorrow.
I go through 2024.
Great, yeah, me and you.
I've also done the appallingly painful 1-hour ethics
Oh,
training online.
It's actually
all
much
have to do.
improved. They improved it from 3 years ago.
Well, that's true. It couldn't have been worse.
It was worse a few years ago. There's a new video. It's a little better. A little less time, but
Yeah. Okay, well, I think that at this point, Noel, your hand is up. Is it okay if I lower
Oh,
it?
no, you can
Oh.
take it down.
Okay, great. I got you. Okay, so at this point, it is 6:45, but I do find it important to have a period of public comment. And in the interest of time, and because this is an invitation to be heard and have your opinions and or questions on the record, I just ask that we have a 3-minute limit on your public comment. And if the conversation needs to continue, I use the chair's discretion. So, great. And if you don't mind just stating your name and your address, that would be great. So I see. Let me see here. I see 2 hands raised and. All right, so Marianne. Oh, here we go. Let me see here. Okay.
Thank you, Heidi. Marianne Albert Boucher, 93 Mount Pleasant Avenue. I thank you for putting up that map showing the areas that you'd like to prioritize. And one being, tonight I'm speaking in regards to the Lieutenant Arthur Maxwell Parsons Playground, which sits adjacent to the East Gloucester School site. And as most of you know, if you do not already know, that the East Gloucester site, it will be the swap land for the Mados Field site, an environmental justice land that was taken, and that the East Gloucester site will be the site for it. I know that the city has, within their loan order, has allocated $1 million for the demolition, grading and seeding of that property. And I hope that the money that, Heidi, I don't know if I got your words right, with not a small amount of money from ARPA funds. I hope that you can find it in your best interest to advocate for the children of the city. They lost a field at Mados Field, and the children at East Gloucester School are losing their school. Although they're going to a beautiful brand new school, that site is used daily by many, many families, not only children, but adults alike. I grew up and was raised in the home next door to that property. I live around the corner from that property. My daughter now lives in that home with her 3 children. One happens to be your student, Ms. Wakeman. And those children are very worried that nothing is going to happen with that land. They're sad to see the school come down, but they know now that it's going to be open space. And I would just hope that you would advocate, as I am trying to do week after week, month after month, year after year, advocate for the children and in the 21st century help to really increase what was taken from the Maxwell Parsons playground, for one thing, and to enhance whatever what can be done there. And I've got the bill in front of me from the State House that says that it will be protected under Article 97 of the amendments of the Constitution of the Commonwealth in perpetuity, to be used for open space purposes. I worry that land will be taken for development, and a lot of us in the neighborhood are worried that that'll be taken for development. And I'm asking for all of you to support and advocate for the children and the families of not only the Mados Field and Webster Street area, but for the neighborhood of East Gloucester School as well. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mary Ann. I appreciate it. Next up is Dave Marrow.
Any chance I could share my screen?
I don't think that you can, but I wonder what it is that you would like to show, and if it's something that I have that I can
Well,
share.
Yes, the proposal to put the second gate in the Magnolia Woods that I emailed to you, I believe.
Yep.
If we could
So-
see that, let me quickly mention that,
Can we get
one,
name and address?
oh, sorry, Dave Morrow, 26 Long Hill Road in Magnolia. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
I am the chairman of the Magnolia Woods Oversight and Advisory Committee. It still exists, but I haven't called any meetings because we made this one suggestion to the city back in 2014, 15, and they haven't acted upon it. And until they do, I'm not calling any meetings. I'm also on the board of the Cape Ann Trail Stewards, so I'm interested in outside activities. The issue is that right now in the winter, the Magnolia Woods recreational area is inaccessible for parking. They have a gate down at the road and you can't get in. And then in the summer, when they open that gate, they leave it open at night and people can drive in up onto the fields and wreck the fields. So I don't know if Heidi's going to put up the proposal, but the idea is there's an easy place to put a second gate farther up, allow parking in the lower parking lot all the time, and that will solve both of those problems if that other gate is closed all the time and the other gate and the gate on the street is open all the time. So there's maps and stuff. I've presented this idea to I've personally talked to the mayor about it. I talked to one of the people in the DPW about it. We've Sean Nolan, I was at his shop the other day and we talked at great length about this. He understands it completely, our city councilor, and he's been advocating for this for years and nothing's happened. So it's just the question is there anything you guys can do to help this to happen? So you can go down to the picture if you would be so kind, the map. It's not looking, yeah. So yeah. Anyway, there's a map there. See there's a lower parking lot that could be blocked off. The Magnolia Woods recreation area, a big chunk of the soccer fields are built on a covered landfill, and it has a rubber top on it. And if somebody drives on it, it puts a dent in the rubber and that collects water. And there's no way to repair that. There's no way to pull it back up. And so that becomes a soggy place forever. So every year, some Yahoo goes and feels like they need to drive on the field. And that's one of the problems. The other problem is I can't get in there now to park. So maybe Heidi could send this to all you guys if you want to look at it. But I felt like the Magnolia Woods Oversight and Advisory Committee did a thoughtful solution to problem and laid it out pretty clearly, and we've been spreading it around the city for 4 or 5 years now, maybe 6, maybe 7, and I don't know why, nothing happens. I don't hear back that they're not gonna do it. I don't hear back that they are gonna do it. I don't know.
I'm gonna say thank you. I'm so glad that you came, and I know that this conversation is a little different than what I said, but it's also connected to the issue of what does it take to affect change, and also how do we work together, different committees, to support our goals. So I'm really glad you came, and I'm happy to forward that to folks. Mark.
I would almost suggest a CPC application for this.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's money that's stopping it. The Cape Ann Trail Stewards at one point offered to pay for the gate. And, you know, at one point they said they had a gate. It's not a big pile of money. I think there's something going on. Maybe the police don't like it. I don't know.
Possible. Okay, I didn't realize that was the issue then. It was.
Dave. Hi, Dave. It's Noel.
Hi, Noel. How are you?
I'm good, but I don't
Good.
know where you could do a second gate that people couldn't drive around in an SUV.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you could show the map again, there's a choke point right above the lower parking lot. There are a couple of boulders could be added to some, and it's far enough away so it's not on the rubber cover, so you could do stuff there.
Yeah, great idea.
Yeah, the idea is good. I don't know what
Yeah.
happens. Yeah, so
Right
it's,
here.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right. No, it's above that parking. The rest of this
Well, it
picture
has,
is
yeah,
not
it
being-
has to be above the parking.
Yeah, I don't see the part. This picture's being cut off. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's there's a little rotary or something there, right, or something
Yeah, kind of. It's below that. It's
below the
it's
rotary.
just-
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know where it's
Up
at.
the hill.
yeah, it's a choke point that could easily be blocked off. It's just if you go there, you go, yeah, we can do this, but no.
Okay. Good.
So I don't know what suggestions you might have or help that you might be able to lend to
Well,
this.
Well, I will say, as this is the public comment, and that I am, as you heard me say earlier, I'm here to look at this, our plan, and see how it dovetails with other existing projects that are on the books and or need some more energy behind them. So
Cool.
what we're hearing, and what I hope to reflect, is that there's not a lot new under the sun. There's maybe new energy and or dollars and or partnerships that can help make this happen. Things happen like this. So
Well, thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you for coming. Hello, Mortallaro Lobster. If you want to just tell us who you are and your address, I'd love to hear what you have to share.
Thank you, Heidi. I apologize for the label, but it's a business account. It's Patty Page, and the address is 3 Tidal Cove Way. I listened to the meeting, and I'm glad that you set up priorities, each member. They all sounded very interesting and good. I've watched the open space. I know about, your struggles with putting forward ideas, and it doesn't seem like it's really hard to move things in the city. I do appreciate that, but I'd like to draw your attention to one thing that comes to me a lot through these meetings is the open space survey that was done. And over 50% of the respondents in that survey responded with, they would like to see improved access of boating facilities for the community. That doesn't, I was glad to hear Noel Mann's mention of Corliss Landing. I will sidebar a moment to tell you, I believe Corliss Landing is a state landing, so I don't believe we can do our own independent repairs. I think you need to talk to Dave Sargent, the harbor master, before anybody does, community outreach and neighborhood and get their expectations up all to find out. I don't think we can do improvements on state landings. But I am very interested in trying to expand boating and those kind of recreational opportunities, mostly in the harbor, rowing and sailing. And if the committee could maybe look at that as one of the priorities based upon the respondents from the survey. That was really important. So I hope that it can come forward. I don't know that I expect any more success in that than anything else you've had, but I appreciate it if you would at least keep it in mind and try. And one of the other things you mentioned, Heidi, I'm pleased to hear, I don't know what input the open space plan will have on the new Green Street Women's Softball Complex, but I do hope that there's some real effort there. That should be a 21st century complex taken from an environmental justice neighborhood into an environmental justice neighborhood. And I do hope that we see some of the best improvements and best we can get up there for the community at large. There's very little investments that I see made in wards 2 and wards 3 for residents. I know Burnham's Field was a particular focus, and again, job well done by all the parties that did that. But if you'll notice, some of the amenities there are not maintained and they go by the wayside. Those are difficult things to watch just as a taxpayer. So again, thank you for all your work, everybody that volunteers here, and we look forward to see what you'll be bringing forward to us. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Patty. I do want to just acknowledge that a really important part of this plan to me is sections 8 and 9, and they're available on the city website. And it does say one of the objectives, or I'll just go back here to one of the objectives is evaluate and improve existing Gloucester public landings to serve and promote boating, recreational, aquatics, and fishing. So there is a lot in this plan. There's specific things: replace existing dock and float systems, create a new water recreation access point at Stage Fort Park, prioritize investment in the following activities. So I'm reading right from the plan, which is available on the website. And I just want to acknowledge that there are a lot of priorities, and it's going to take a lot of different people and a lot of different voices and a lot of different energy to help make those things come to fruition. But I hear you loud and clear. And I also know that because something is in the plan, it does not mean that it's a guarantee, but it does help us hone in on what matters. And again, the survey was one piece of a bunch of pieces of data, and then it's a I'd like to say it's a guide for how we can move forward and continue to improve our city and our beautiful resources. So any other final comments and or public comment? Noel, I see your hand.
Move to adjourn.
Okay, if there are no further comments, then I will look for a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I don't think we have to do a roll call of the members, but it is passes unanimously. and look for communications from me regarding next steps and or invitations to furthering these conversations individually and together.
Thank you, Heidi.
Thank you, Heidi. Night.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye.